Hello and welcome to Music Rewind, a podcast where we look to tell the stories behind our favorite albums. I'm your host, Steve Epley, and in each episode, we invite a guest on to tell us about their favorite music album, how they discovered it, and what makes it special to them. Joining me today is producer, mixer, and engineer Vago Galindo. A graduate of Berklee College of Music, Vago is a two-time Grammy winner for his work with Juanes on the 2021 album Origen. Vago has a long list of musical collaborations and has also worked on film soundtracks such as La La Land and Beauty and the Beast. Welcome, Vago, and thank you for being on the show.
Hey, well, thanks for having me in. It's a pleasure.
You have the privilege of being the first of hopefully many Grammy winners on the show. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, no, man. I'm excited about it. Excited to be talking about music.
Well, let's jump right into this. What album would you like to bring to the table, and what makes it special to you?
Well, the album I want to bring in is Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. That album, it came out during the pandemic, and I really like connected with it. There's the last song of the album, which I think it's called I Know the End. It's very about the end of the world. So 2020, a song about the end of the world, it was very, on
I could
point.
see that connection. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's very kind of dark and it kind of reminds me also to what's this guy? Tom Waits. I don't know if you ever listened to Tom Waits, but it's kind of like murky,
A different voice completely, but the same feel. Definitely the same feel.
Yeah. It's that kind of vibe, and I'm a big Tom Waits fan also, so it was I just really connected with it when it came out.
How did you discover it? Were you a fan of her first album, or did it just kind of come across it?
Well, I discovered it because one of my best friends, Leora, she was a big fan, and I didn't really listen to the first album, but when this came out, she was like, "Oh, you really need to listen to Punisher. You're gonna love it." And it was during the pandemic, so we were all in a weird place. So I wasn't really listening to a lot of music because I was like, "What's happening?" So when that came out, I was like, "Oh my God! Whoa! This is amazing! This is so cool and so inspiring." And it's kind of because it's not a. I mean, it's a sad album, but I felt a little bit uplifted by it. I don't know if that makes sense a little bit, because it's such a this is the end of the world, and there's some songs that are like Kyoto, which talks about her. It's kind of like a blurb of her just writing about an experience traveling abroad, but also she talks about her dad, her relationship with her dad. So it's it's a very interesting album.
It's definitely one of those headphone albums.
Yeah.
There's it feels like nothing on the album is accidental. It's all been purposely, every little blip and every little atmospheric, wind in the background is on purpose.
Yeah, and the guitar sounds, I rarely hear something that I'm like, how do you do that? It's such a weird thing now too, because everything, we have, technology is so accessible nowadays that you're like, oh yeah, I know how you did that, and how this tone, this guitar tone or this drum sound came about. But in that album also, the production was really amazing. Like you were saying, it's they really taught it out.
Different songs have they have different feels to them. I'll say that again. But I've on my notes, I put one song almost sounds like a Beatles song. There's another song that sounds like a country song. There's definitely a range in there. I'm not sure what she was going for as far as sonically, but it's definitely like a therapy album.
Yeah.
She was putting her heart out there on damn near every song.
Yeah, and that's also what I really like about this album, because it just seems like she's being very honest about what she's going through.
Absolutely. She really puts it out on a sleeve there.
There's even the intro just starts very it just feels like something is waking up, but it's kind of in a dark, what's it called, the first song, DVD Menu, I think.
Yeah, the first track is DVD Menu, and it's just this instrumental somber track. it sets this kind of subdued tone for the album.
Yeah, and then the second one, the
Garden
garden
Song.
song. It's like it's also very dark, but it's also kind of like I feel like it. I mean, also the lyrics are like whoa, like
And when your skinhead neighbor goes missing, I'll plant a garden in the yard. Then they're gluing roses on a flatbed. You should see it. I mean,
I put that in here on several tracks where she has such jarring imagery in her
yeah, yeah,
in her lyrics, but then a line or two later she'll flip around and it's something uplifting. And it's very weird how she does that. She's talking about burying a skinhead in her garden.
yeah,
And then, a line later, she's, I don't have the lyrics in front of me, but she's, smelling the roses in Pasadena. And
right,
It's like
right.
one way, two far ends of the spectrum. It's pretty interesting how she can do that.
And that's the thing I really like about that because it's like it's dark, but it's also again uplifting because it's like oh okay, like you're not saying this in a how do you say like not it's somber, but it's not. It's she doesn't want it to have an the ending of everything. It's not somber ending.
Yeah, I bet you there was times where a lot of these songs were full melancholy and they had to go back to them and be like, we need to pick things up a little bit. We
Yeah,
can't have 11 straight songs of full melancholy.
yeah, yeah. No, and I was reading an interview about how they were making the album, and it's funny because most of the songs started off as ballads because I mean, and
Did they?
they kind of sound like ballads if you
Hmm.
you know. Then they were like, well, we can't have all like all ballads on it. It's also like I'm still very impressed because it's one of the albums I still listen to it and I'm still like I listen to it from the beginning to end. Nowadays, I feel like that's an oddity, For me, I don't really. There's not a lot of albums I listen to from beginning to end, and I'm like, oh, like I love everything that's on it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, most of the albums that are brought to the table here, that is the go-to. Just these are the ones that you listen to front to back.
yeah,
Even if there is a skippable track on its face value in the flow of the album, it's there for a reason and it fits, and it just feels the flow through the whole thing.
yeah. No, it's yeah. That's exactly how I feel about this album.
Because there's a few tracks in the middle there that if I just heard by themselves, they wouldn't click with me. But
Okay.
in the flow of the album, they work.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I was actually thinking about that the other day before before we had this interview because I was like, wait, which ones are the ones that I like really, really like, and which ones are the ones like I want to give it a listen again to the ones that I might have not listened
Mm-hmm.
because obviously everyone has favorites and on everything. So like there's like things like the song Punisher to me it's amazing. Also because that song talks about this artist that I actually found out because of this song, but this artist called Elliott Smith. He lived in LA. I mean, he passed away a few years ago, but he wrote songs that are very like there's an area in LA called like Silver Lake Echo Park, and his music like really sounds like that neighborhood, which is kind of
Okay.
like interesting. But on Punisher, she talks about like, hey, like I don't like I've never met you. I don't know who you are, but I just feel like I love you and we have this deep connection, even though you're no longer in this world.
Yeah, I had to read about that one because I will listen to the album while reading the lyrics, and afterwards it's like I gotta know more. So I did look up Elliott Smith, and I saw that that's what it was about. But I guess the term Punisher is kind of an inside industry term for a super fan that won't go away.
Yeah, basically.
And so she's talking about being the Punisher to Elliott Smith, stalking him, and in her mind, wanting to linger, a little too long.
Yeah, it's also funny because I bet there's a lot of. I mean, I bet she has a bunch of Punishers.
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah. So
Are you familiar with Twin Peaks at all?
of course, yeah. No, that's like
This track was very Twin Peaksy to me.
wow. Yeah,
That chorus could have been played on any of those episodes. It had that, and I that's music I can't describe. I have no adjectives that are proper for that, but that's what it felt to me. It was very Twin Peaksy.
What if I told you I feel like I know you, but we never met?
That's awesome. I like Twin Peaks. It's actually one of my favorite TV series ever. And the third season came out a few years ago, and I refused to watch it for like a few years because I was like, what if I don't like it? Like, what if like this is
It's an experience, to say the
yeah,
least.
yeah. I think it came out in 2017. I finally watched it in like 2021, but I loved it. I was
I watched it when it came out. I think I got Showtime specifically for that series
oh,
when it came out. And
right,
story aside, I was deep into the rabbit hole
right.
in every episode every week. But the soundtrack to that season was pretty great. Eddie Vedder on there, and Cactus Brothers, and several.
Nine Inch Nails also.
Yeah.
It's like
That's the soundtrack blew me. I haven't rewatched it, but I have the soundtrack and I've listened to that many times over.
it it's surreal because, like, for example, when Nine Inch Nails is also one of my favorite bands. So when they play there, I mean, I didn't know they were gonna play, but I saw it. I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then I heard the song. It's like, wow, this really doesn't sound like Nine Inch Nails to me, but okay. And then I started reading about it, and literally David Lynch told them, I want Nine Inch Nails to play a non Nine Inch Nails song.
Oh, really?
And I'm
I
like,
didn't know
oh,
that.
that's funny. Like, wow,
That's very David Lynch.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then the whole like how I forgot the name, the woodsman, or the there's an episode where all the zombies kind of,
Yeah,
I don't know if they're zombies, but
it's episode 8, I think.
yeah, that one, and how the Bob is created and all that. Like,
Mhm.
that was a whole, yeah. That's funny that you relate Punisher with Twin Peaks. That's awesome.
Not lyrically, but
Yeah, no,
sonically.
yeah. No, I can imagine, it's really on point. Like, I really like, there's makes completely sense. Yeah, because yeah.
Well, to continue down that trend, I mean, track 5 is Halloween. It was a very dark and haunting tune.
But I can count on you to tell me the truth when you've been drinking and you're wearing a mask. Baby, it's Halloween.
Yeah, that one actually took me a second to really like. But the more I would listen to it,
Well, this is the start of that mid section of the album that, to me, all the songs go together. Like, tracks kind of like 5 through 8 are all almost combined into a little mini vignette there.
and it's but then the whole what's it say in that song? Like, I hear an ambulance waking me up at night, and I hope like somebody better be dying because they're like waking me, like,
Yeah,
it must be like,
how she would think the dark joke of somebody better be dead to wake me up,
yeah.
which is a joke that any regular person might say or think, but then immediately regret it afterwards because you realize what you just said.
Right, right. Yeah. But it's like, it's things that I feel like for me are very, very raw for her. Like, it's something that, oh, well, this happened to me. So I'm like literally saying what I'm going through.
Yeah, she seems to be, at least this track is a dead relationship, and it's so lifeless that they can't even pretend on the day when everyone pretends about something, which is
Right.
which is pretty profound, to put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Because then on that song is the one where she talks about it. That's also she's like, there was a concert and a fan died during the concert.
Oh,
I
that's
think.
Moonsong.
That's
Yeah,
Moonsong. That's not
I
Halloween.
think that was Moonsong with the Dodger fan.
Oh, okay.
My notes say that's Moonsong, so my notes don't lie. They are infallible.
And I always thought that, Halloween, you can dress as whatever you want, you can be whatever you want, that always.
But whatever relationship she's talking about is, what's the point?
Yeah,
Everybody else is pretending for fun. We can't even pretend for real.
right. But yeah, that one took me a second, and the more, because actually the way I listen to music, at least how I started listening, like I think since since I was very young, I didn't really put attention to lyrics initially. So when something catches my ear and I start like actually, reading the lyrics and like trying to make, a meaning of the song, it's that's when I know when like I really like something, because it's like I usually like my first instinct is listening to, the arrangement or the melody. But again, this album is one of the things you wait, what is she saying? Like, what's going on here? Like, what?
I think I'm pretty similar with in how I grew up as far as how I listen. I'll just enjoy the song. The lyrics are there unless they jump out at you specifically. And then I would be the one with cassette tapes and the fold out after, going line by line through, Billy Joel lyrics and stuff. It was almost like a process.
Yeah.
And eventually you get to the lyrics.
Yeah, and that's during the pandemic, I started listening to. I was never a big fan of Bob Dylan, but then I realized, oh, actually, it's also because he's he's a writer, so you should actually put attention to the lyrics.
Yeah, he's almost a poet first,
Right,
musician second.
right. So during the pandemic, a very good friend, he's like, "Do you like Dylan?" It's like, and he's like, "No, you should like really like sit down and listen to Bob Dylan and actually look at the lyrics so you understand what's going on."
I keep saying I'm going to dive into that catalog, and I can't have time for it. I like old Bob Dylan quite a bit.
Yeah. I haven't finished everything because there's a lot, but
It's a big catalog, yeah.
Yeah, I might have listened to the first 4 albums, and I was like, okay, like now I get it. Like I understand. He's a poet, like you said. There's also the big one here for me which is Kyoto, which
Yeah, Kyoto. That was a standout for me. I liked that one a lot.
Day off in Kyoto, got bored at the temple, looked around at the 7-Eleven. The band took the speed train, went to the arcade. I wanted to go, but I didn't. You called me from a payphone.
yeah, that one, because it's like, Day off in Kyoto, it's very like kind of like childish in a way.
It's an upbeat kind of indie style rock tune.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it highlights her voice a lot. Her voice is beautiful in that song.
Yeah, and then she goes like, "Hey, I want to kill you if you don't beat me to it." Like, it's like, wait, what? Like, weren't you like talking about being in Kyoto and having a?
Well, it's a common theme on the album where she does things or thinks things on impulse, and then
Yeah.
either immediate kind of like second thoughts, or I don't want to say regret, but just, rethinking what she was saying or doing because she's getting older. To go back to Garden Song, there was a lyric I liked. It was, when I grow up, I'm going to look up from my phone and see life.
Right.
And that's such a great line.
Yeah, things like that.
And that's a repeated theme throughout the album as far as, I'm a little bit older now. I have to act a little better, but I kind of don't want to.
Right. Well, yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it, because it's like I'm realizing I'm becoming an adult, but also like who decides how an adult should act.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. There's the other one. What's it called? It's barely it's at the end. I think it's the Savior Complex. Also is like really good one.
That's the one I put feels like a Beatles song.
Yeah.
Contest all the bad dreams that you had. Show me yours, I'll show you mine.
But it's like Beatles meet, I want to say like Johnny Mitchell, maybe. Just like it just reminds me. I feel like Johnny Mitchell could have written this song.
I can see that.
I might be. Yeah. It's like.
Well, and I liked to skip around a little more. Graceland too.
Oh, the country one. Yeah, I always confuse that one
I See You?
with ICU. Yeah, I think I'm confusing ICU. Yeah, well, Graceland 2 is really cool.
Graceland 2's it's got harmonies in it with several background singers, and I don't know who they are, but the harmonies with Phoebe Bridgers sound wonderful, and it's got a banjo in there, and just the song
Yeah.
is nice. I could hear that on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
I'm asking for it if they do. Doesn't know what she wants or what she's gonna do.
Yeah, no, it's like boom, boom, ka-dum, boom, boom. Yeah, right. And the ending, the kind of like whatever she wants,
Hmm.
it just keeps repeating that part. Like it's like
Yeah,
and also the I read about on Garden Song, the lower octave voice.
yeah, that little haunting
Uh,
side
uh
voice that she says.
that's like her, like I think it's somebody that works with her on tour. Like I think it was like her
Oh,
stage
really?
tech or like something like that. And that she came to her producers like, "Hey, listen, I want this guy to like sing on my song." And Tony Berg, the producer, is like, "Oh, is he a singer?" It's like, "Nope, but I really like his voice." But it's always nice having the because there's again, it's the type of thing where like for example, if somebody would have asked me, "Hey, like I want a lower octave voice," I would just do it on my computer, like digitally.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "No, I want this by an actual human that can sing that lower octave." And it's just like, there's nothing
He's got
that.
that lurch sort of,
Yeah,
voice to him. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not trying to insult him, whoever he is, but that with her very unique high voice and his, that's quite the contrast.
yeah, yeah. Funny enough, it actually reminds me to that 8th episode of Twin Peaks where like I am the
Oh
water, I
yeah,
am the that kind of thing.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the album does end very strongly though. With so you got ICU, Graceland 2, and then I Know the End, and I think those three are a strong ending.
But you had to go. I know, I know, I know. Like a wave that crashed and melted on the shore.
Yeah, and again, like I said, the last song to me, it's very cathartic, and the ending which is just like,
It's kind of two songs.
yeah, but the ending where she's just like, it's like I don't know if that's supposed to be funny or that's supposed to be scary, but it's like,
I
you
read that
know,
she was inspired by kind of My Chemical Romance and the Black Parade, and
oh
she just wanted to end on a scream. And build around that scream, and it works. A friend of mine who's a fan of this album, he sent me her SNL performance of that song, and that was
oh right,
interesting. I mean, seeing her scream it
yeah,
live and then smash her guitar.
and smash her guitar, yeah. She also did that for sorry, she played that song on the I think it was like an NPR kind of thing. I like that it starts with, I think they're in the Oval Office. The show starts that they're in the Oval Office. But it's all like green screen, obviously. And but when they go to I Know the End, they kind of like took off the green screen and you kind of see the realness of the
Oh,
space where
okay.
they are. So it kind of starts like, the show starts like in a this false reality, and then it becomes more and more real, like, and raw.
That makes sense. And I love that chaotic ending though. You got like mariachi horns and all kinds of craziness going
Yeah,
on.
yeah. I would have never thought of that. Like, it's like, you know what would be cool? Like mariachi trumpets. That's what we need.
When you listened to this album first, did it influence anything that you were working on at the time?
I think it still influences
Yeah.
me. Like it's one of my. I always try to. I forgot who said this, but like, I think it was Stravinsky that a good artist like borrows and a great artist steals, or a great artist comes from stealing, or
I know the I know the saying here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's not really that I'm like I'm gonna steal parts from this, but it's more like we were saying, like that Tom Waits vibe. Like I'm always like, how do you do that? How do you create that like eerie, murky vibe, or like, because there's also and maybe I'm completely wrong, but there's a bunch of sounds in this album that really seems like it's wood, like just like, what's the word in English? When wood creaks, is that a word?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wood Creek. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And I'm always like, how do you, like, I wanna add something like that to something I'm working on, like that kind of, but it's more the vibe and the feeling, like, than actually like listening to parts. Even sometimes, like I would say like, oh yeah, like, like Punisher, and but I wouldn't listen to the song or the album. I would just be like, just the vibe, just, and I consciously won't play the song, so we're not like actually listening what they're doing, but more like what feeling I have in my head for it.
So and this is just my not knowing the business and what happens in the booth, but like when someone brings a song like that, when the artist wants this, does the engineer put their imprint on it, or is it kind of reverse? Like how does you've worked on many albums, how does a song like that develop?
Um, I I think it depends. I think it's always a I think the most important part of of creating music is, trust, like trusting the artist has to trust you, and you have to trust the artist, and understand the process. I've been in many different positions. When I was starting, it's more like you're there to like, they just want to record vocals, and that's kind of it. Or they like, hey, like we're recording drums for this thing. I realized like a long time ago that I can't just do that, because I become so like invested in the things that I work on. So it's more like, okay, so like we recorded drums, but like, hey, like I was hearing, I have an idea in my head because you did that. So like, or sometimes like nowadays, what I like, if I just hear something, I just go for it. Like I'll just like, hey, like, while you guys were on break, I was hearing this, so like see if you guys like it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes I'm like, this is gonna be super cool, and then like I play it for somebody, and it's like, eh. Or sometimes like for example, I was we were writing a song, like this artist from Colombia, a few weeks ago, and she was saying like, I want to make like Colombian R&B, and in my head it's like, I have no idea what that means, but what if we literally put like Colombian percussion into like an R&B song, like very literally. And we did that. And I was like, and she was like, oh my God, like, something as simple as that, but it's something that when you do it, it's like, for some people might seem like, this is like, how do you come up with this? And it's like, well, you literally said Colombian and R&B.
Do you and we're getting into your field now, but like do you have time to do that kind of stuff? Like are you guys usually on a deadline in the booth, or do you have time to try new things and sample and get more creative?
I am on the I like to have deadlines. Most of the people I admire, or and some I think most of my mentors, they're all like, they just kind of go for it. Like it's very instinct based, and I feel like I really work like that. I don't know. I mean, there's time for experimenting, but I feel like just kind of like try something on the spot, and if it doesn't work, we just move away from it. There's been a few albums where there's a little of preparation, like a little, like, okay, like we're gonna spend like a day or a week collecting sounds. But I mean, that's very cool. It's fun, and it's cool doing it, but I get bored very fast, because it seems like, because suddenly something like making music becomes like a chore, or like, okay, like it's like, or a scientist, it's okay, we're collecting
Yeah.
sounds and then we'll do music. I'm like, in my head it's more like, well, I should just be doing music right now, rather than
Yeah.
like, most of the time to me it's like very instinct, like it's kind of like we're there and I'll just go for it. Or I mean, and sometimes it works, like there's a lot of trial and error. Also, I was trying to remember who it was, but I read that Nigel Godrich from Radiohead. You would think that they would spend like weeks and years working on songs, but they actually work on a song a day, which blew
Hmm.
my mind. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, like that's what I want to do.
Yeah, we discussed the Radiohead song album In Rainbows, and
Oh,
that's a very
yeah.
complex album. I couldn't imagine them just working on a single song all at once with all the things that were going all through that album.
Yeah, no, in Rainbows they didn't actually. This studio just closed down in LA, but it's, United Recording in Hollywood. But they did that, and I was reading an interview. It's like, yeah, we like work on a song for like a day, and he'll mix it, and also in like a day or two, and then they'll move on. That's the other thing though, and I think this is very important. If you're on this creative mode, like working on one song specifically until it's done, I think that's very important rather than working on like three separate songs in the same day. Like to me, that's it's like too like schizophrenic.
That actually was a question I had for you towards the end. It was when it all falls to you to next phase of an album. Do you do just one song to completion, or do you work multiple tracks? As the ideas come and go.
It's like I was saying, it's like I like get super focused in like one track and then working it. And then, if I'm like, okay, I don't know, like I need to take a break or I feel like something is done, I'll just move to the other thing, or to another song. But yeah, like there's been a few times where I have to like work on more than one song in a day, or you know, or have to be very creative and or try to be very creative in some songs, and it's just like there's like this little voice in the back of my head saying like, hey, but you haven't finished this one, like, you know. And I have this. I realized I was talking with a friend the other day who came to my studio, and he was telling me like, wow, you're like, because we started making music at like, let's say like 10 a.m. and I was still doing stuff at like 11 p.m. And he's like you're insane. Like how do you still have this like stamina to keep like making music and being creative? It's like, yeah, but I finished one song and it's like, okay, like you kind of flush out all those ideas and then you move to the other one and it's like kind of like a blank slate for me. I thought that that way of working was that's how everyone would work, but apparently it's not.
I mean, to compare it to my corporate world with for the day job with my project management, that's you can't do that. You can't just focus
Right.
on one thing. You have to have multiple streams going at once, or you don't meet any deadline.
Right.
So,
That is true. Yeah, it's I mean, and probably you'll talk to other people and they're like, oh no, I need to have like different things so everything kind of but that's the beauty of it. There's not right or wrong answer for any of
oh
this.
yeah,
It's really like
yeah.
it's really it really depends on the person.
Well, what was it like to work on a Grammy-winning album?
It was very surreal, especially because it came. I worked on it in a very like, okay, so this is how I got into that project with Juanes. Literally like a week before we started recording, I get a call from the producer Sebastian Chris, who's a longtime friend, and we've worked together on a bunch of albums now. But he's like, hey, like I'm working on an album. It's for Juanes. It's gonna be here in LA. Do you want to be a part of it? It's like, oh yeah, of course, absolutely. It's like, okay, well, next week, like come Monday, 9 a.m. at Sunset Sound Studio 2. And it's a very iconic studio. Like, that's the
Mhm.
last time the Beatles were like in the same room making music.
Um,
I think they did a few mixes for Led Zeppelin there, but I don't think they I think they finally just released those versions. I think the Doors also played. It's a very iconic studio in LA. And it's like I grew up listening to Juanes when I was primary school or so in my mind it's like, oh right, like this superstar is obvious and he lives in Miami, so it's like this superstar is not gonna come to the studio, right? Because he's a superstar, and why would he come to LA to record? And we were recording the initial like rhythm sections and some keyboards. So it was like drum, bass, and some keyboards. and I think some guitars, but I think he re-recorded the guitars back in Miami. So I get there, and then like Juanes is there, like he's like the first person in the studio, and I'm like, "Hi, you're Juanes." And I was like, I have no idea. Like, okay. And he's like this the most like down to earth, like really he's always looking to make like the best music he can do, like which is it's very inspiring, like, having I think he's the third or second like Latin artist with the most Latin Grammys. I think I might be wrong, but he has like 30 something. Like
Oh
it's
wow.
or 20 something. It's surreal. Like, and he was just he had just gotten, when I met him, he has just gotten the Person of the Year like Latin Grammy Award, which is like, it's like it's surreal. So I was like, oh my God, you're here. And it was such an interesting thing, because for that album we were trying to achieve, Origen is an album it's basically the music that Juanes would listen to when he was starting his career. So it's a bunch of different songs that
Mhm.
we like turn into. We made it into more like a Juanes.
Which I butchered the title of that album earlier.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just read it as Origins. So
Yeah, literally, yeah. So it was like really interesting, because like there's a song that it's very like Colombian. It's super Colombian. There's a few songs that are very Colombian, so it's like, okay, like, because Juanes is famous for being like a rock guy that but with like Colombian
mhm.
like rhythms. So it was like, okay, this is already Colombian, so let's make it really into like, for example, music from Cali that's like kind of like salsa.
Gotcha.
It's like, how do like, let's grab like a salsa like melody and play with like a distorted guitar.
He's an artist that I had heard of, but I couldn't tell you anything about him because it was never something that was put in front of me.
Right. Yeah, but he's just like, he's been doing a lot, and he's like, again, he's probably one of the most prolific artists in Latin America as a whole,
Mhm.
which is insane, because now I
Well,
work on Origen with him. Oh,
so
yeah.
I listened to a couple songs off the album, the ones that jumped out at me, like "Dancing in the Dark" and "This Could Be Love,"
Oh,
and those. And if I had to compare, I'd say a Santana feel to it.
yeah, and he has such a remarkable like the way he plays the guitar is very Juanes. Like
Mhm.
it's really like,
It was a unique sound, yeah,
yeah, it's like, but it's like Santana. You hear like Santana playing two notes, it's like that's Santana.
exactly.
Like it's never like, oh, I wonder who that is, or it's more like, no, it's like that's Santana, that's Juanes. And now like finally we're working on his new album, and there's two songs that had come out in the past few months. Like Grease, which is one of my favorite ones, just came out I think 2 weeks ago, and I'm so excited about
You
it.
worked on both those.
Yeah. I worked on the new album, which is it's all
Is
it's
this originals?
yeah, this one's originals. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. Yeah, and that's gonna be also exciting. But it's also really cool, because I started with Juanes on that week where we were recording drums, bass, and keyboards. I started as a recording engineer, and it was more like I was kind of there to, I was like the new guy. I was like, and there were like the musicians were like Pete Thomas, who's the drummer for Elvis Costello, Carlitos Del Puerto, who's a bass player that plays, well, he played with Chick Corea for years until he passed away, and Roger Manning, who's a keyboard player for Beck. So
Oh, that's cool.
it was like all this all star like music, and Juan is playing guitar, but it was this all star like musicians, and me. I was like, hi, and well, Sebastian, the producer, who's like, 20-time Grammy Award winner. So it's just like,
That's
and
good company. Yeah.
yeah. It was great spending the week with them, but I was, like the first week not knowing what's going on, and it's like, well, what am I doing here? Like, who is like what? And now like, and it's like, I just we I kept growing my relationship with Sebastian and with Juan, and now I'm like mixing. Now I'm mixing, because I co-mix with Sebastian the new album, and it's just, for me, it's very surreal and humbling to like be working with one of the artists I like grew up like listening to.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's like I still don't believe, like he'll call me asking for, I was like, hey, like I want to do this. I'm like, oh my God, you know my name. Like, what?
Not just living the dream as far as a profession, but also to work with, your musical inspirations and heroes. That's pretty great.
Yeah, and also the thing that it kind of like, I don't know if this will make sense, but now listening to an artist that I really like, but also having something to say about the music, like now I'm putting my opinion on
Yeah. Yeah,
like, okay,
you got your own stamp out there. You've got, your own sound is developing, and someday someone will say, "Oh,
right, right.
that's a Vago track."
Right. So that's the thing I was like, and this just dawned on me like this year. I'm like, wait, oh my God, I think I'm getting to the, because literally like when this last Juanes song came out, a bunch of people were like, you totally worked on this. Like this sounds like you. And I'm like, oh wow, this is exciting. That's never happened to me. That's kind of cool. Like I have a sound. Like that's cool.
Yeah, I hope someday you're up there with the ranks of Butch Vig and Rick Rubin, and just
Right.
your all the great well known producers. That's
Yeah.
you'll be there.
Yeah, no, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully. I funny enough, you said Rick Rubin, but I'm reading. He released a book, and I'm reading it right now, and it's really cool because a lot of things he says, I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. Like that's, it's like I really connect, and like I feel like a bunch of stuff that the way he thinks, I also think like that. So it's like, oh, I'm not in the wrong path. Okay, that's cool.
So Punisher made the top of your list. What albums would have made your short list?
So one of them was it's a Radiohead album. It's where Kid A comes. Wow, I'm terrible with names, but I think it's called the OK Computer.
Okay, Computer. Yeah,
Yeah, OK Computer was like
that's the one
changed.
with Paranoid Android on there.
Yeah, that one changed my life. Like that's really, like really changed the way I would think about music, because
Mhm.
it's like it's like there's like the structures are not this. It's not like verse chorus. It's more like it goes into like this, like,
Complex is the way I would describe that album.
yes, but also you can listen, like it's not like it feels like a band is playing, it's very like,
They're very cohesive. They're
yeah.
in sync through the whole thing. In our previous Radiohead album, I talked with that super fan Luke about how my love-hate relationship with Radiohead. When that came out, I was and still am a Pink Floyd super fan. That's my group, and I was told that you must like Radiohead because you like Pink Floyd. So me in my teenage years, I was like, no, I refuse. But now in my twilight years here, I've rediscovered Radiohead, and that is an excellent album.
It's super cool, and to me, I was never. So my story with that album is that I wasn't a Radiohead fan, and I don't know why. Like I really don't know why. But one of my friends was like you really need to listen to this album. "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a chance." And also, I think the way I was listening to it, I was still in college in Boston, and I couldn't sleep. Like when I couldn't sleep, and I still do it, but I would like go outside and walk and just listen to music.
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm just gonna put this album, see if I like it. And I will just usually I'll listen to something, and if I get back home, I'll just stop it. And that night I just like kept on walking, listening till I listened to the full album.
That's cool.
Because I was like, oh wait, what? Like, and it's so weird because, for example, the first song, Airbag, like it's such a, like the bass comes in such weird places, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like this is it's like, and well, Paranoid Android also was like a big one. I was like obsessed with that song because, and well, Karma Police, like it's just there's a bunch of like and there's that song that has like the robotic voice, like you have to be like happier, fitter, like it's
Mhm.
like what? And it's funny because like I don't know if they made it thinking about this, but like you can listen to that in any, however old you are, and it still makes sense. It's still you still connect. The other album was Lizzie McAlpine's 5 Seconds Flat.
That's not one I'm familiar with.
It's similar in to Phoebe Bridgers in the sense that the lyrics like really got me. It's a very like raw album, but it's also very it's kind of like a I want to say it's kind of like a breakup album,
Okay.
but it's very like it's very again, it's the same thing with Fury where it's sad but also uplifting, you know.
Okay.
Um and the songs are, the arrangements and the production, it's amazing. She released like she made a small film with some of the songs, and I was so excited. And her voice is also amazing. You can really tell like it was like her and her producer just like making music for like, let's say, a month or however they were working on it, or a year, I don't know, but it's just a very like intimate kind of album.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing I wanted to ask you is, so you've done work on film. How did you get into doing work on Beauty and the Beast and La La Land? How'd that happen?
Well, so when I moved to LA, I started as an intern at this amazing studio called Igloo Music, it's a studio in Burbank, California, and it was interesting because I didn't know that at the time, but then I like my first week there, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But everyone there was a Berklee graduate, even the owner is a
Berkeley out of Boston,
Yeah.
ended up in Burbank. Okay.
Yeah, but like this whole collection of like Berklee grads working at the studio, and all of them were from Berkeley. So it was like, oh, okay. And the studio owner, Gustavo Borner, he's also like a very prolific mixer and producer. I think he also has like 18 or 20 Grammys, like something like that. It's surreal. So his thing was that he literally, he'll like produce and record like this big like Latin pop albums, but then he'll also like mix movies, like the soundtracks for the movies, and then he'll record voiceover like for Disney or like Netflix and things like that. So that was like my first gig in LA, and just being there exposed to all these things, I was introduced to doing all that. So, like Beauty and the Beast and La La Land, they were done there. And that's how I got into that. And now like I just finished working on a musical, the first Latin American movie musical that's gonna come out, I think in like 2 weeks now. It's in like
Oh, yeah?
April 7, I think. And this one I'm a co-producer and a co-mixer for the soundtrack.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, it's very cool, but it's I started with Gus doing that, and then it just kind of it's something that sometimes people will ask, "Hey, I'm looking for somebody that can work in this. Do you know anybody?" And I'm like, I can do it. And it's also fun because it's a different rhythm than like I feel like making an album, for example, it's more like it's like sometimes it's like the artist and I like we're alone in a room working together for like a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And a movie, it's like suddenly there's like all these departments, there's all these people involved, there's all these opinions, there are all this like different things you have to like take in consideration, and it's a different rhythm also. Because sometimes it's like, hey, like, can you like make this change of the strings in like 2 hours? And it's like, because we have a meeting and we need to show the producers, and it's like, oh my god, okay, yeah, I can do
You
this.
said you like deadlines, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, but it's also the rush that I get from that, like
Oh, I bet.
that I really like. I get very excited. Like it's like you'll hear me complaining about like, oh my god, this is impossible. Like nobody will do it, but I'm like, oh, like fuck yeah, I can do it.
Yeah, I mean that's gotta be a rush to you, because like not only is it's so unique to have that type of request to you, but it's like, yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
let me get right on that. Yeah, that's just cool to have that talent, that skill behind the question. That's great.
Yeah, and I get so excited, and I feel like I'm the kind of person that really tries to, like I usually get the call of when everything's burning down and nothing's working. That's when like they call me and it's like, can you like please fix everything? Like and by 6, it's like, okay, yeah, let me think about it. But yeah, There was also another album actually that I was gonna mention, which was it actually just came out like not like I think like a week ago, but I've been really listening to it, and it's called Los Feliz, like Los Feliz, like the neighborhood in LA,
Okay.
by Marco Mares, which it's like it's so like simplistic that like the production is very minimal, and it's mostly vocals. Like the whole thing, it's like literally you can take everything and the vocals they just stand on their own.
Mhm.
And that album is like it's really really cool.
That's one I've never heard of. So yeah, that's a new one for me.
It literally came out like a week or 2 weeks ago. But
Gotcha.
but I that's been one that's been on repeat on my listening sessions.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time here. So, Vago, I'd like to thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure to sit and talk to you about Punisher from Phoebe Bridgers.
Woo! Yeah, I was, it's always exciting talking about music I love.
I'd like to thank you for listening to Music Rewind, a podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. If you enjoyed today's episode, there are many ways to help the show, such as our Patreon or affiliate links in the show notes. The easiest way, though, is to give the show a rating or comment wherever you listen. We really do appreciate it. Thank you again, and as I always say, listen to the full album. Until next time.
A podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. Back to you, anchors.